Good morning. Are we well today?
Oh, yes.
Are we well? Good, I hope so. So, my topic today, my topic is this. Where are we? I have to press this one. There, here we go. The amazing power of the human mind. So last time I talked about perception versus reality. And that we are God's children, created in the image and likeness of God. And God is present within us. But we don't maybe always realize how close we are to God, or how God is right within us. Yeah? And how, I explained before, I understand these stages of growth. Another way to look at these stages of growth is, the first stage is like a victim consciousness. That life is being done to me by external forces. I'm a victim, whether of my childhood, my ancestors, or whatever. But actually that first stage is like a perception. It's a perception of who we really are. We're not victims at all. The next stage is this manifesta consciousness, that we have the ability to create our own lives. This is we are co-creators with God. God created us as his children, but we are meant to not just wait for God to perform miracles and to do everything for us, but actually we're meant to be partners with God. And if we have God's love and we have God's truth, then God works through us. But we create our own lives. It's our responsibility. That's our 5% portion of responsibility. And so today is about this second stage, that we have the power through our human mind to create the lives we want. And so let's think about the mind-body connection and what the principle teaches. So first of all, the mind has three parts: intellect, emotion, and will. So the intellect is the part of us which is seeking for truth. The emotion is it says in the principle, this is searching for beauty, but actually beauty is what you give back to someone who loves you. So actually part of the emotion, the more giving part, is love. So we can say the emotional part is the desire to find love, and that we give beauty back when we respond to love. And will is a search for goodness. So we want to be people of truth, beauty, and goodness, and love. And actually, within our mind, within the mind is heart. The deepest part of us is our heart, which is this irrepressible impulse to love and to be united in love. So behind the intellect, behind the emotion, behind the will, is the heart to love, which kind of binds the heart, the mind, and the heart together. So ideally, the mind is the subject and the body is the object. Subject-partner, object-partner. And they're united through true love. The love which gives without expecting anything in return. So this is how God created us. And if we live like that, then God's Spirit works through us naturally. And we give love to God, and God gives us love. But after the fall, the reality of the human mind and body is there are two subjects fighting with each other. And if you have two subjects with equal strength, then no one's going to win. But of course, God gave us a conscience, and that conscience is guiding our mind to be good. Yeah? So we always have that there, but we also know there's this contradiction. This is the situation of fallen man, fallen humankind. So with restoration, how do we change this? It's actually, we have to have spiritual practices to strengthen the mind. We can weaken the body, but actually the best way is to strengthen the mind. So how do you strengthen the mind? You strengthen the mind, you study. You study God's word. Yeah? You may meditate, so you can quiet your mind down and be open for God to guide you. And you can pray. Because when you pray and you talk to God, you can receive inspiration. So we need to strengthen our mind. If we look at how we grow spiritually and how the mind and the body work together, we can say that our spirit needs life elements to grow. What are life elements? Do you remember? Life elements, according to the principle, this comes from God. This is God's truth. We need truth. Truth is like light to our spirit. We need enlightenment. We need to be clear about what is the purpose of our life, how we should live our life. Once our mind is clear, we have direction. We're not confused. But we also need love. We need to receive love from God. So as a child, parents are in the position of God to give you God's love. Yeah? So if we don't receive love, even if we have truth, we may become pretty hard people. No heart, but all knowledge. So the intellect needs more. Our mind needs more than just intellect. Our mind also needs to feel love. And then, on the other side, our spirit needs vitality elements. Vitality elements come from the physical body. And how do you receive them? From your good action, by serving, by sacrificing for the sake of others, by investing, by doing a good job. Every day you have a job, and then if you invest your body and you do what you're supposed to do, it gives energy to your spirit. So these two things, yeah? So the truth is like feeding the intellect. And love is filling the emotions. And then your will is to do something, not just to sit down and meditate and to pray and to study, but to actually get up and put into practice the truth and the love. So what Father says, he says, unity is achieved with true love. This is the key to the mind's happiness. So if our mind is happy and strong, it's easy to move the body and to do the things you want to do. It's when you're not feeling so good, you haven't got the energy. So we need bright, strong minds. So this is, you could say, daily practice. This is like a life of faith. Every day we need life elements. Every day we need vitality elements. And when they flow, we feel strong, we feel God's presence, and we can actually influence others through our bright spirits. So the divine principle is not a science book, is it? No. But actually, we need science to understand reality, because there's internal truth and external truth. And in the principle, it talks about, because of the fall, man became ignorant. He became ignorant in two areas. External truth about how the world works, and internal truth about how we should be as human beings. And science is the path to external truth, and religion the path to internal truth, to overcome ignorance. In the divine principle it states, with the progress of science, the human intellect has become highly sophisticated, requiring a scientific approach to understanding reality. Yeah? That's why people today don't believe in religion, because it's not proven scientifically. Yeah? They want proof. Today people will not accept what is not demonstrable by the logic of science. Internal truth demands logical and convincing explanations. But the good thing is that science is now delving into the invisible world. Science today is entering a new phase, turning its attention from the external resultant world of phenomenon to the internal causal world of essence. So we live in an incredible time. And spirituality and science are coming closer and closer together. And there are several people in the world today who are researching and writing books and finding the connections and able to explain people's spiritual experiences and practices through a scientific method. Let's look at the advances in science today. First of all, have you heard of neuroplasticity? Okay, neuroplasticity. This is the brain's ability to change and grow throughout a person's life. Our brain is not stuck and unchangeable, even if you feel you're a bit old and stuck in your habits and so on. Actually, every thought you have creates a pathway between neurons in your brain. So if you practice something many times, that pathway becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. So, and our brains are constantly changing. Every thought we have affects our brain. So neuroplasticity is showing that we are not stuck and determined even by our, by our upbringing, by our ancestry. We can change our brain. We have the power to change ourselves. It's in the brain. It's in science. Have you heard of the growth mindset and the fixed mindset? Because in schools now they're teaching this to motivate children to realize they can achieve anything. Because the fixed mindset is, well, I'm no good at maths. I never have been and never will be. I won't even try. Or the other person says, I'm a genius at maths. I was born with this gift. So, that's just the way I am. But actually, in schools, in my school also, we're teaching that through this idea about we don't talk about neuroplasticity, but we do talk about neurons. And every thought creates a connection with another neuron and a pathway. So if you practice something, it's like saying, okay, maybe at the moment I'm not good at maths. But if I try and I practice, I get better and better and better and better. So there are people with handicaps, like Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf, but she became a great person and wrote books. Yeah. And there's this Australian man who has no arms and no legs, and he gives public talks around the world. And he goes swimming, and he goes sliding down a what do you call it? Down into the water. Can't remember the word. So he's very positive and very happy, but he's got no arms and he's got no legs, because he has a growth mindset. Because he decides in his mind, I can do this. That's neuroplasticity. Then there's this one called psychoneuroimmunology. This is the study of the effects of the mind on health and the immune system. Our mind, through the power of our mind, we create chemicals in our brain which then go into our bloodstream. Oxytocin, you know what that is? Oxytocin, if you feel love, it creates chemicals in your brain that make you feel happy. And then there are stress hormones that will create stress, and weakens the immune system. So we can strengthen the immune system with oxytocin, or we can weaken it through our stress hormones. Epigenetics, have you heard of this? This is a study of biological mechanisms that turn genes on and off. So you've heard of we all have genes, yes? So people think, well, if your parents had a certain illness, then you're likely to get the same illness because it's in the genes, yes? That's common understanding. So that you have gene therapy today, so you can actually change the genes. But actually, epigenetics is saying, no, our genes are not stuck. We can turn them on and turn them off through the power of our mind, through the power of our beliefs, and through our emotions. We can change them. And this is proven scientifically. And one speaker who I mentioned before is called Dr. Lipton. What's his first name? Anyway, he did a lot of research, and he found it's actually the environment affects our genes. I mean, he looked at very simple animals and could detect the changes. But environment for us doesn't just mean the weather. It means the environment within us. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs affect our genes. So they can be switched on and switched off. So if you have a susceptibility towards a certain illness, you can use the power of your mind to switch those off, to downgrade them and uplift other genes. So I'm not a scientist, but this is fact, but it's not commonly talked about, because in the media you just hear about gene therapy. This is the latest way to, you've got bad genes, so let's change the genes. So this is modern science. This is the cutting edge of science. Quantum physics, a branch of physics studying the inside of atoms. So if you look into the inside of atoms, what do you find? You find nothing. waves and vibrations, actually going deeper and deeper. Everything is made of energy. So energy is not stuck. Energy is moving. Yeah? And Einstein, he said, energy can turn into matter, matter into energy. It's the same thing. So if I was to go inside myself and try to find my atoms, I would end up finding space. Yeah? It's all about vibration. Yeah? That's why in the spirit world we can't see anything, because it's a higher vibration. Yeah? That's why ghosts can walk through walls. Because for them there's nothing there. So these advances are showing that are showing what is possible. And my understanding is that, okay, so we're not victims. We are co-creators. But the knowledge that we've had in the past has not enabled us to actually control our lives, because we think, well, God will do it for me. If I pray to God, he'll answer my prayers. I'm not saying that won't happen. I'm not saying angels, if you ask angels, they will help you, but they have the knowledge. We don't have it. Yes? So I'm not saying we don't need God, we don't need angels. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that in the beginning, when Adam and Eve were growing, he wanted them to mature so that he could have this direct relationship with them, so God could dwell inside of them. And that actually, if you read Father's words, he says God wants us to be better than him. In the same way, parents want their children to be better. So how can we be better if we are praying to God, please help me, please answer my prayers? Of course, that's a stage. It's a stage. Yeah? But God wants us to have that power within ourselves. So science is showing us what is possible. The power of belief. Have you heard of the placebo and the nocebo? Okay, the placebo, it comes, I think, from Latin, means I shall please. Whereas the nocebo means I shall harm. So basically, the placebo, when they're testing drugs to see whether they work or not, they give sugar pills to a control group and to see if the real drug works. But what they discovered is the placebo, when people take the sugar pills, they think it's the real pill, and they actually create the chemicals in their body that the drugs are supposed to give you, and they cure themselves or they improve their health. Whereas the nocebo is the belief that this is going to kill me, or this is, I'm going to die. Yeah? It's the opposite. So I would like to read a story about a woman called Janice Schoenfeld, and who had chronic depression. She was 46 years of age, and in 1997 she saw a newspaper. She lived in California, and the university was looking for volunteers to test a drug, a new antidepressant drug called Effexor. Effexor, that seems like a fixer, to fix you. Yeah. So she was very happy to do this, and she knew that roughly half of the group of 51 people would be getting the drug, and half would receive the placebo. She agreed to return, every week. This was like an 8-week study, and every time she came, she answered questions about how she was feeling, and they tested her, put her through an EEG machine to check her brainwave activity and so on. And she dramatically felt better after the first week. And she thought, but she felt a little nauseous, a little sick, but she thought, well, that's understandable because these are the side effects of this drug. And so by the end of the 8-week study, when she came, they told her, because she felt suicidal at the beginning, you're no longer suicidal, because they could see in the brain scans, different activities in the brain. But actually, she'd been in the placebo group. And she couldn't believe it, so she said, please check. And they checked, and she was in the placebo group. So she had created that chemical in herself because she believed that was the real drug. But she wasn't the only one, because the study would show that 38% of the placebo group felt better compared to 52% of the group that received the drug. Yeah? So that's one story. But actually, these EEG recordings of the brain, they showed it was a significant increase in the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is where depressed patients, there's a low activity, so the activity increased. So it was proven. And even more than a dozen years later, she is free of depression. So this is belief. Belief. Then we have another guy called Fred Mason, who was also depressed. He was depressed because he split up from his girlfriend. And then he saw also an ad. This is not his real name, Fred Mason. He saw an advertisement for an antidepressant drug. And he thought, well, I better do this, because I'm really depressed because my girlfriend has left me. And after a month of taking this drug, he called up his ex-girlfriend, and they argued on the phone. And when he hung up the phone, he impulsively grabbed his bottle of pills and drank all 29 of them. Yeah? But when he did that, because he felt, no, I don't want to kill myself, and he repented. He said, no, what have I done? What have I done wrong? And he ran out into the apartment, and he called out for help, and he collapsed on the floor. And a neighbour came and saw him on the ground, and he was taken to the hospital. And he said, it was a terrible mistake, I didn't mean to do this. And when he was taken there, he could say, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. He was in the emergency room, he was sweating, and his pulse was rushing, and breathing rapidly. And he said, I don't want to die. But when the doctors examined him, there was nothing wrong with him. But he felt really lethargic. And then he said, they took blood samples and urine, and then he said, this is what I took. And they actually took the drug, and this was the placebo. And once he realized, his blood became normal, his breathing became normal, and he was fine. So it's another example. This was like the nocebo. I'm going to die! Yeah, as he created himself through his mind, through his fears, through his beliefs. And then we have one more person, Mr. Wright. Actually, it's not, again, the real person, but it's a story. So I'd like to tell you, he had cancer of the lymph glands, lymphoma. So this is his story. This was in 1957. And this man had huge tumours, some as big as an orange, in his neck, groin, armpits, and his cancer was not responding to any conventional treatments. And he lay in his bed for weeks, gasping for air, completely bedridden. And his doctor had almost given up hope. But then, when he heard about a treatment, some experimental drug, which was extracted from horse blood, called Krebiozin, he got very excited. And he thought, well, he badgered his doctor, can I take this drug, please? It might save my life. So the doctor gave him an injection of this drug. And when he got it, it was on a Friday. By Monday, he was walking around in the hospital. He was laughing and joking with the nurses, acting pretty much like a new man. And the doctor reported that his tumours had melted like snowballs on a hot stove. And within 3 days, the tumours were half their original size. And in 10 days, he was sent home. He was cured. It seemed like a miracle. But 2 months later, the media reported that the trials showed that this drug had turned out to be a dud. It wasn't working. A dud means it had no effect whatsoever. And when Mr. Wright read this, what do you think he did? When he realized that it was useless, he immediately got sick again, and his tumours started to return. And so Dr. West suspected that Mr. Wright's first response was due to the placebo effect, because he believed it. Now he's believing it's not working, so it's like the nocebo effect. And he knew that Mr. Wright was terminal. You know, if he gets these tumours, again, this is a pathway to death. So Mr. Wright decided to use it as initiative, and he said, "Oh, don't believe these newspaper reports. That was just a bad batch, you know. Actually, I've got another batch. This is a new super refined double-strength version." And so he gave that to him. And guess what happened to Mr. Wright? In a few days he recovered. Yeah. And but again, it wasn't a drug. It was just distilled water. So they magically vanished, these tumours. And he happily returned home and did well for another 2 months, free of tumours. But then, the story goes on, the American Medical Association made the announcement that this drug was worthless. It actually turned out to be a hoax. It was nothing more than a mineral oil containing amino acids. And the manufacturers were being sent to court. Yeah? Upon hearing the news, what do you think happened to Mr. Wright? He relapsed a final time, no longer believing in the possibility of health. He returned home and he was dead 2 days later. Belief. Belief. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's the man who, he's written a book called The Biology of Belief. And he talks about epigenetics, how the genes can be switched on and switched on according to the way you think. Yeah? It says, if the brain expects that a treatment will work, it sends healing chemicals into the bloodstream, which facilitates that. That's why the placebo effect is so powerful for every type of healing. And the opposite is equally true and equally powerful. When the brain expects that a therapy will not work, it doesn't. It's called the nocebo effect. So we're people of faith, aren't we? So we must keep faith and believe in the power of God, in the power of ourselves, and that this world can change. Yes? You believe the world will change? Believe in the kingdom of heaven?
Yes.
Yes? Even though there are not many people here just now. We know there are many ancestors and spirit worlds here. So we are people of faith. We're not affected by external reality, because it's internal reality that counts. What about the power of thought? Here's a happy man. This man is called Morris Goodman. Have you heard of him? Morris Goodman? So I'm going to tell you his story about how he used his mind to improve his life. Here we go. So he was involved in a plane crash in 1981. And this is his story. I'll read what he says. This day really changed my whole life. It was a day I'll never forget. I crashed an airplane. I ended up in the hospital completely paralyzed. My spinal cord was crushed. I broke the first and second cervical vertebrae. My swallowing reflex was destroyed. I couldn't eat or drink. My diaphragm was destroyed. I couldn't breathe. All I could do was blink my eyes. The doctors, of course, said I'd be a vegetable the rest of my life. All I'd be able to do is blink my eyes. That's the picture they saw of me. But it didn't matter what they thought. The main thing was what I thought. I pictured myself being a normal person again, walking out of the hospital. So he used visualization. He imagined. He pictured. The only thing I had to work with in the hospital was my mind. And once you have your mind, you can put things back together again. I was hooked to a respirator, and they said I'd never breathe on my own again because my diaphragm was destroyed. But a little voice kept saying to me, breathe deeply, breathe deeply. And finally, I was weaned from it, from the ventilator. They were at a loss for an explanation. I could not afford to allow anything to come into my mind that would distract me from my goal or from my vision. I had set a goal to walk out of the hospital on Christmas, and I did. I walked out of the hospital on my own 2 feet. They said it couldn't be done. That's the day I will never forget. For people who are sitting out there right now and are hurting, if I wanted to sum up my life and sum up for people what they can do in life, I would sum up in 6 words. Man becomes what he thinks. The power of thought. Use your thoughts wisely. Yes, use them positively. Thought's a powerful thing. Joe Dispenza, actually, he is a speaker, and he's written a book called You Are the Placebo. He, when he was a young man, he had a very bad accident. He was in a cycling race, and he was knocked over by a vehicle, and the vertebrae in his back were crushed. And this, I'm not going to tell you his story now, but similar to the man before, he cured himself through the power of his mind. He went into a meditative state over many weeks, and because he is a chiropractor, he knew exactly what the bones look like. So he could picture them, and he put them together in his mind. He actually cured himself. So he says, the latest research supports the notion that we have a natural ability to change the brain by thought alone. It is scientifically proven that the body can heal by thought alone. Your body doesn't know the difference between an experience and a thought. You can literally change your biology, your neurocircuitry, chemistry, hormones, and genes simply by changing your thoughts. So, 95% of our thinking is in the subconscious. We're only 5% conscious. Our whole body is being regulated through our subconscious mind, through subconscious programs. Yeah? So actually, positive thinking alone doesn't change much. Yeah? But he has a method of meditation where you can go within yourself and change your subconscious mind, the subconscious programs. And he has done a lot of scientific experiments, and on his workshops he has people with all this equipment on, checking under meditation what's happened to them, and can see in real time how the brain is changing through the power of their thought under meditation. Yeah. So Yogananda, who I hope you know, this kind of a spiritual leader from India, he wrote this when he was alive. Thought is the primary energy and vibration that emanated from God, and is thus the creator of life, electrons, atoms, and all forms of energy. So he was a spiritual person, not a scientific person. Yes? But he was very wise and very deep, and he meditated a lot. And he wrote this book, the autobiography of a yogi. So from a spiritual viewpoint, he's saying, this is how God created everything. What about the power of emotion? So we have the power of belief, the power of thought, and now the power of emotion. This man here is called Norman Cousins. And he was a long-time editor of newspaper, magazine in America. He's a kind of well-known person. And in 1964, after he had a very stressful trip to Russia, he was diagnosed with a degenerative disease, which is a bit like a breakdown of collagen in his... it was very painful to move. It left him in constant pain and motivated his doctor to say he would die within a few months. But he disagreed. And he reasoned that if stress had somehow contributed to his illness, because he had not been sick before he went to Russia, then positive emotions should help him feel better. And with his doctor's consent, he checked himself out of the hospital and into a hotel across the street and began taking extremely high doses of vitamin C, while exposing himself to a continuous stream of humorous films, including the Marx Brothers. Remember the Marx Brothers?
Yes.
I laughed a lot. The silent one, what's he called? Groucho's the one with the moustache. Harpo Marx. At the top there, he never spoke. He was Harpo Marx. He was the funniest one. I laughed a lot. So Norman Cousins, he decided if my negative emotions have caused my stress and my illness, then I'm going to change it. Yeah? And okay. He found that 10 minutes of belly-ripping laughter would give him 2 hours of pain-free sleep. Yes, 2 hours of, 2 hours of belly-ripping laughter would give him 2 hours, 10 minutes of laughter, 2 hours of pain-free sleep. When nothing else, not even morphine, could help him. And eventually he made a complete recovery. He laughed himself to health. So he wrote this book, Anatomy of Illness. And I'd just like to say this comment, this little boy here, laugh until your belly hurts and then just a little bit more. So we all need to laugh. And some people have funny laughs, and Mr. Bean has a very strange laugh. And old people can laugh with deep laughter, and another old person. So laughter is good medicine. Laughter creates chemicals. Yeah? When you laugh, your chemicals, the positive emotion, makes you feel good. So, so the power of emotion. So are you, so every day, are your emotions more positive or more negative? In between, are they both? Can you spend a whole day just being positive? So let's look at them. So actually, love is the most powerful positive emotion. Yeah? Love can change anything. Love can cure anything. Love can solve any problem. Would you agree? Unconditional love. If Father could go to Kim Il-sung and embrace him, and he could love his torturer, he could love his enemies. But Jesus loved his enemies. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. So love is the most positive emotions. But gratitude is like gratitude is a pathway to love. Gratitude brings blessing. And then joy. Joy is a wonderful emotion to have. Passion for something. You have a passion for something, it's like you have a love for it. You invest in it. And excitement. If you're excited about something, you feel great, don't you? Gives lots of oxytocin, lots of positive chemicals to your system. Hope. Have hope. Always have hope. It's very easy to lose hope. But again, it's the thing, the external circumstances should not affect you. If within yourself you have love, gratitude, joy, passion, excitement, and hope, then external circumstances will not bring you down. Humor. Have a good laugh every day. Confidence. If you believe in yourself, it's a feeling, it's a good feeling when I can do this. Yeah. And satisfaction. I feel pleased with what I've done. Yes? But what about negative emotions? These negative emotions are going to start off quite negative and are going to get worse and worse and worse. So, boredom. Yeah, boredom. Yeah. Irritation. Disappointment. Worry. Criticism. Anger. Hate. Envy. Guilt. Despair. Fear. Yes, all of those things are negative. Negative emotions over a long period of time affect your body because it's like they get stuck. That's what science is telling us. So but actually love, I think we don't need to get rid of these things because love can melt everything. Yeah? Positive emotions. When you're feeling good, all the negatives disappeared. Of course, there are things stuck inside of us. But the power of love, most of all, can change anything. The power of emotion. This is Dr. Bernie Siegel. And this is, he's written a few books. He has helped people with cancer research. And he's written a book called To Do With the Way You Think. And he says here, I am convinced that unconditional love is the most powerful known stimulant of the immune system. If I told patients to raise their blood levels of immune globulins or killer cells, no one would know how. But if I can teach them to love themselves and others fully, the same changes happen automatically. So that's his research. He's seen how people have cured themselves with love. Love for themselves, love for others. The truth is, love heals. So the highest emotion is love. Anything is possible. All things are possible with love. We've already seen him, thank you. So, in conclusion, when I talk about the amazing power of the mind, so the science is showing what is possible through the power of thought, through the power of the emotion, and through the power of belief. And so, I would like to end by just reminding you, if you want to be happy, if you want to have control over your lives and over your health, it only takes a thought, because thought becomes things. It only takes a belief. A strong belief in anything can make it happen. And the emotions, be aware of your emotions. Keep them positive. And most of all, have the emotion of love. So God wants us to have control over our lives. God wants us to be co-creators. He gave us the power. And science is showing what people have maybe known for centuries, how we can achieve, you could say, unlimited potential. Anything is possible. Jesus said 2,000 years ago, all things are possible if you believe. Yes? So now science is showing actually how our beliefs, our thoughts and emotions actually change the chemicals in our body and can change our lives. So with that, I'd like to end. Thank you very much.